I'll read this to you from the New York City Police Department's handbook. Quoting, "For more than 20 years, the NYPD Patrol Guide has prohibited the use of chokeholds, relying on a police department rule that unequivocally forbids any pressure to the neck, throat, or windpipe that may inhibit breathing. This rule was plainly intended to prohibit chokeholds. As defined, chokeholds, though not illegal, are unambiguously prohibited by the police department." Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano joins us now live on the Fox News deck. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are that this ought to have been an indictment, and it ought to have been an indictment for some form of manslaughter. It's not first-degree murder, it's not second-degree murder, but it's certainly reckless manslaughter because of the excessive use of deadly force on a person who posed no serious or material threat to the police. Now, I say that, not having seen the evidence before the grand jury, not having seen all of the medical reports, not having heard what the DA said to the grand jury, but just on the basis of the tape alone, on the basis of the absence of a threat that Eric Garner posed. Yes, he was resisting arrest, but he had no means to threaten the police. He had no deadly force in his hands. This is not a case like in Ferguson where there was a struggle for the gun and the police ended up with the gun rather than the other person. This is a case of a poor, sorry individual doing nothing more than selling untaxed cigarettes, and as a result of government intervention, he's dead. This is not a fair application of the law, but my caveat is, again, that I have not seen what the grand jury saw.
Just for you base a lot of this on the video, of course. You have to consider what this man was doing. This is Staten Island, but you could walk down the street here in Midtown where all the tourists are and all the rich people work in suits, and it wouldn't take me 2 minutes to find somebody selling Lucy's that hadn't been taxed, or something they had driven up from North Carolina, or you'd gotten on an Indian reservation, because cigarettes are $15 a pack here, and it's a lucrative thing. Live pictures outside the spot where this chokehold, where this death happened in Staten Island. That's the neighborhood, and we'll keep a live picture there throughout the day. But that was part of the reason that so much of our community here in New York City thought, surely there'll be some charges after what they saw in that video.
You know, Police Commissioner Bratton, whom I know and of whom I am a fan with respect to his attitude about community policing, was responsible for the attitude that if you get rid of the small, bothersome, but not really serious, harmful, but technically illegal activity, the worst stuff will leave your neighborhood as well. So the idea that we should stop things even as harmless as selling untaxed cigarettes is part of the plan to do that. And there's a lot of statistical basis to back that up. You get rid of the small stuff, the big stuff goes away. But this is an example of it not working. This is an example of a cop using a procedure, which, as you just indicated, the police department has instructed its police for 20 years, long before he was a cop, not to use a procedure that was grossly excessive in light of the threat to the police at the scene, which was near zero.
By way of background, and that you mentioned it just a short time ago about cleaning up the little stuff and the big stuff take care of itself. There was a time in New York City not very long ago in the 1980s when nobody knew anybody who hadn't been mugged or attempted to be mugged or hadn't faced some sort of street crime. And the biggest problems that you noticed as someone coming to our city were when you tried to go through one of the bridges or tunnels, some guy would come up to your windshield and try to wash your windshield whether you wanted it or not and expect a payment. And then even in the nicest neighborhoods, people would relieve themselves on the streets of this city. And those were two of the first things that Mayor Rudy Giuliani and the police department at the time said, we're going to stop. They stopped the windshield wipers and they stopped the peeing on the streets. May not seem like a big thing to you, but it was a big thing around here, and they stopped it. The questions were about how they were stopping it. And then we went on to more crimes, and then they took Times Square from a drug den that was, you would never let your kids go there after dark. You would never let your wife or your girlfriend go there after dark. I mean, never, not for a minute. Right. And now it's Disney World. You can be glad it's Disney World or wish it weren't Disney World. That's neither here nor there. It is Disney World now. But it is. But the problem is, how do you get there? And 1 million times out of 1,000,001, I figure they get there in the proper way. The question was whether this was the proper way. Was this excessive? And a grand jury has apparently ruled there was no crime here.
Well, as you indicated, this grand jury will not have the final word. The Attorney General has been looking at, listen, the person nominated to replace the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, is the chief federal prosecutor in this part of New York City. She or someone in her office will now have to decide if the federal government wants to seek an indictment of this police officer for a violation of civil rights that resulted in death, the excessive use of force that results in death.